Hello, good evening, welcome. My name is Kwabena. I welcome. I want to share with you today re-education, why you need it as an African. Degrees are for jobs, and the section is for life, or self-education is for life. Since I started doing this Facebook Live, every now and then I meet people who say that I watch you. I watched this program. I was very much glad. I learned something from this. I learned something from what you talked about finance. I learned something from what you talk about what it takes to build a business. I learned something about education. I learned something about what you talk about engineering. It's good, and thank you for taking a minute or two, or sometimes hours to watch it. Sometimes I'll go to some people's. I meet people. They actually, there was a time I met this gentleman who was actually watching the videos. And he told me that he watches them, and he waits for them. And almost every day, I hear somebody, whether they send me a message or I meet them in person, or they tell Marie, my wife, and things like that. And we do it for the love that we have for our country and for the love that we have for humanity. If you're an African, there are a lot of challenges that you have been born into. There are a lot of difficulties that you've been born into that you don't even aware. We are not even aware. And part of it is coming from the kind of education that we have been given. The kind of education that they have pushed on us, the kind of education that we were born into. So far, it is not the best. It is not the best. So whether you have BEC certificate in it, or you have 3 PhDs in this African kind of education, there is something that you still have to do yourself. If you want to live beyond just the degrees for the jobs and just the degrees for the positions and the post, and living for yourself, and to get into where you educate yourself for life. You educate yourself to help your country. You educate yourself to help your people. Everywhere you go in this world, people who look alike like us, Africans, blacks, we all have a lot of questions that we ask it every day. And the major part of it is the kind of knowledge that we process, the kind of education that they have given us. Whether we gave it ourselves or some people came to live it and we have not changed it. So my persuasion, or the little things that I've found out, is that if you're an African, if you're a black person, you have to re-educate yourself. And there are a lot of whys that you have to know to re-educate yourself. There's a lot that they have pushed on us in terms of these so-called schools and educations, and almost all the young people, almost everybody, keeps on asking questions. What has been wrong? What is wrong? Why are we poor? Why are we this kind of people? And as a matter of fact, some people have mastered the negativity. They have mastered being paranoid in terms of the things that have to do with the African. But you cannot save a people. You cannot contribute that much to our continent and our development until you discover yourself, until you save yourself first, until you deliver yourself from a lot of these things, and until you start to live as a full human being with confidence and persuasion, and with living beyond just your self-interest, and living to make a contribution to your country, to your continent, and to the world, until you are able to re-engineer your mind and re-engineer your thought. You will live. You can become anything. You can become the president, the minister, but you will not do much to help improve our situation, because the training, the education, you have to do it yourself. I'm not saying that don't go to school, but the content that they have given you or they are going to give you in these schools, you cannot use them to help contribute to the development of our continent, of our country, and even for your own self. The average African is not even conditioned to look for any good thing from his people or from his country, or from, most people don't expect to be treated nicely as Africans. Sometimes you drive and you stop for people to pass, whether they are driving their own cars or they are walking. And majority of them least expected that somebody else will just stop, for them to pass by, or somebody else will, stop for them to, people don't expect to be treated nicely. Why? It's because of the kind of environment, the kind of training, the kind of condition that they have given us. So if you are interested in building your life, building yourself, and making a contribution to our continent, my suggestion is that you have to re-educate yourself. They have given you the tools in terms of reading, writing, and all those. Now you have to recondition the content. You have to you have to replace a lot of the content that you have given you. And education is actually a conscious construction of information or of knowledge that gets to people that they can use to solve problems and create solutions in the environment. And if you look at our environment, you can say that the education is not there, because if the essence of education is to create solutions and to solve problems, then obviously it seems to me that there are a lot of more problems that we don't know. There are a lot of problems that the so-called people that we have educated have no clue what to do about them. It means that the education is in question. The education is in trouble. The education is not what they call education. And so for you to get to where we will say that you've been educated properly, I think that you have to go back to the drawing board and re-educate yourself. I think that I have to go back to the drawing board and educate myself. And so some of the things that you see and why the need for you to re-educate yourself is that if you really educated, if you really been taught, if you really been consciously developed, you will have respect for people. If you really been educated to live in a civilization, you will have respect and sometimes trust for people. If you go to any community, any country where mistrust is so high, where lack of respect for another person is non-existent, it means that the people have not been developed to live in a civilization. And so you have to re-educate yourself in terms of having respect and dignity for people and for others. You should have the mind to solve problems and make quality decisions. If you've really been educated, these are the things that you should have. And that's why there's a need for us to re-educate yourself, because people finish school in this country, on this continent, and some of the things that we are going to discuss, you barely see them. You hardly see them in people. You hardly see them as part of people. Why? Because the kind of thing that they gave us is not really education. If you've really been educated, you will have the mind to solve problems. Problems around your environment will get to your mind. It means that you've been educated. If you see troubles and you don't find a way to solve them, you are not educated. You just can read English and understand. You can read P and understand, but you don't have what they call education. You went to school, but you our leadership don't even the system of education, because run out of medical attention whilst we train professionals in our countries. Re-education is very key. Yes, re-education is very key, and it has to be done maybe at the personal level first, and maybe at the country level. So if you really have the passion to become something, to become somebody in your life, you have to commit to re-education. And that is what I have committed my life to do. I don't only rely on the school that they sent me, but I use the tools of the ability to do maths, the ability to read, to understand, to replace the kind of information or to upgrade the kind of information that former school gave me. Because without that, then you cannot do much with your life. So if you've really been educated, you have the eyes and the ability to solve problems in your community. And so the more problems that we have, basic human problems that continue to confront us, they show that our education is not really education. Our ability to connect with ideas and look at issues from different perspectives shows that we've been educated. And so if you lack the ability to look at issues from different points of view, some people, when you discuss anything with them, it is straight mind. This is what I've seen, this is what I believe. I'm not open to any discussion with anybody. That is your opinion kind of statement that is very common in our community. It shows lack of education. It shows lack of the training of minds of our community. So the popular discussion with people who can even, who say that they have been educated, you are discussing something with them, they say something, and you confront them to say that, how about this situation? And when they lack the tools and the point, then they just say that, that is your opinion. That shows that you're not deep in thinking, and that shows that you have not really educated yourself. And so there is a need for you to educate yourself, because if you've really been educated, you are open to different perspectives, different ideas. You are open to discuss issues. And when they bring any topic on board, you don't just argue with one point. Sometimes when you make religious statements on Facebook, the people who have this responsibility to defend Jesus on Facebook, they tell you that, quote me the scriptures. But there are a lot of things that God has said that may not be in the Bible. There are things that have been revealed to people from inception of time to now that have worked, and that work that have produced results that you may not find in your Bible. And so if you are of the thinking that it's not in the Bible, therefore it doesn't work, it means that you are very much limited in your thought. And some people never read any book apart from their Bible. And they think that they can do a lot. No. If you've really been educated, you will explore. You have the ability to explore. You have the ability to read other things. You have the ability to question other things. And so people, when you're educated, you are creative. Morally, spiritually, in terms of intellect and technology, you get informed if you're really educated, because education is very intentional to place some kind of content in you to get results. And so people say that they're educated, but they are very shallow in terms of culture, in terms of even spirituality, and in terms of morals. When you bring any other topic apart from what they know, they don't have it. There's no emotional maturity, and they cannot even focus on any mission or any vision. If you really indeed are educated, there are things that will prove in your life that you're educated. And so far, a lot of the people that we have sent through this kind of education that you have given at, this kind of training that you have given at in these schools, you know that if you place these things on the line, they will fail. And that's why there is a need for you to re-educate if you want to get to your goals, if you want to get to the level of life that you so wish for yourself. Because the content that these people gave us in this Africa, there are a lot of issues. And so for the African, they go to school for degrees so that they can get jobs, but they don't educate themselves for living. Degrees are for jobs, for certificates, but to educate yourself is for living. It's for living your dreams, it's for living your passion, it's for making contribution to the development of our continent. So if you're educated really, if you have the right kind of information, the right kind of knowledge that is shaping your thoughts and your decisions, you will see that your values are different. The way you practice is different. You have appreciation for honesty and integrity. You have appreciation for ethics and for value, for the right things to be done. If you're really educated, you see that these things would have been part of the education that they gave you. Now, so corruption at a very high level is a proof that the people have not been educated. You cannot really be educated. You may have gone to school to become anything, an engineer, doctor, professor, theologian, carpenter, a cook. That is, you went to school to get that. But if you were really educated, part of the education, you will have integrity, you have honesty, you have value for human lives, you have ethics, you practice with the best of the codes. So when people say that they've been educated, when you don't see these things, it means that they have to go back and re-educate themselves. Because education really has a component of values, of ethics, of integrity. So when they say that the Africans have been educated and yet corruption is so high, it doesn't add up. They've been given certificate. They've been given something they call education. But really, they don't contain education. They don't. People who have been educated have inspired mind to keep reading and researching. There is constant desire to become better. If you're really educated, if you were really schooled, if you're really taught by the masters, you have the mind to constantly search for knowledge. You constantly read. You constantly want to upgrade yourself. You constantly want better knowledge. You don't believe in what you found yesterday. You want a better way of doing things all the time. That is a proof that you've been educated. That is a proof. When people finish school and they don't read anything, they don't study anything, they don't care about reading any book, it means that they were just sent through school. They were not educated. Because the proof of education is that you become equipped to provide solutions to the problems of society. And so the more problems you have in the society, it means that the people you think have been educated were only sent to school, but they were not constructively trained to be relevant to their environment and to help their environment to develop. So people who have been educated, they read. So if you don't see yourself practicing these things, it means that you have to go back and re-educate. There is a need for you to go back to re-educate yourself. Because if you've really been educated, as you say you have been, you have that constant innate desire to search for knowledge constantly and to become better. The desire never goes away if you are really equipped, if you really were educated. Your self-esteem develops. You get confident and you are not afraid to challenge the status quo and to challenge things that don't work. And you have the honesty of heart and character to extend the same thing to other humans, irrespective of their race, of where they come from, irrespective of even the kind of God that they serve. So for instance, if you're a Christian and the other person is a Buddhist, if you really are educated, your self-esteem is leveled, and you have same respect for people. And you don't impose your religious beliefs on the other people just because you think that yours is better. If you're really educated, you have respect for people's ability to choose what they want to choose with their lives. If you're really educated. Now, the other people who are not really educated, they scare you. They tell you that because they don't believe in what you believe in, it means that you are wrong. And it doesn't matter. They will curse you if you don't agree with them. And they will create a panic instead of them to build an argument and discussion. And for them to leave you to even make your own decision as to what they are saying, whether it makes sense or it doesn't make sense. Well, the uneducated people don't have the heart or the training to respect the choices of others. They don't have that because their mind is not able. They don't have self-confidence enough to accept disagreement and criticism because they are uneducated. And so if you find yourself not having this, it means that you have to go back to the table and retrain yourself. It means that the education that you think that they gave you was deficient, was not sufficient. Because if you've really been educated, you have the self-esteem to disagree and agree with people and respect the choices of people. respect the values of people. And these things, you don't see them that much in Africa because the kind of education they gave us is not education. They gave us something that you wrote exam to qualify. And so you go to the professor's office and he doesn't care what you think. He only wants you to produce what he thinks you must produce. And so we train people without looking into their way of seeing life. We only train people how to look at life from our point of view. And if they don't look at life from our point of view, it means that they are wrong. And if you have that kind of tendency and that kind of approach, it means that you were not fully educated. You go back to the drawing board and re-educate yourself to respect people, to value the choices that people make. After all, they live with their choices and you live with your choices. So if you're really educated, you don't play God. You value people, you respect people. Yes, you can argue with people, debate with people, but at the end of it, it is their life, it is their life, it is their choice. So you don't impose your belief system on others. You're open for discussion. And if you are really educated, you want to see development. You want to see development. When you see poverty, they get to you. When you see lack, they get your attention. When you see people suffering, they get to you. It means that you've been educated, because education is just an equipment to create solution in the environment that you were born, the environment that you grew up, the environment that you find yourself in. If you're really educated, you are looking for solutions to improve that kind of environment. And so the people who've really been educated, they're always looking for improvement. They want to make sure that the way they came to meet the situation will not be the same way they lived that scene. They want to leave a mark. If you've been really educated, if you've really been educated, so they have the ability to generate ideas a lot, and they innovate and they are very creative. If education is like that, so you cannot really be educated and say that I don't have a job. They sent you to school to look for a job. But if you're educated, you cannot say that I don't have a job, because your mind is inspired to innovate, to create from where you are, and you have enough confidence to defend your innovation, to challenge the status quo, to challenge the assumptions and the things that they told you that were true, that now, because you have an inspired mind, you can question. That's really education. So the one who has been really educated cannot say that I can't find a job. It's not part of his dictionary, because he's looking at creating solutions wherever he is. That is education. And so if they push you through school and they didn't give you this kind of gift and this kind of trainings, it means that you have to go back and train yourself. It means that whatever they gave you, whatever they trained you with, was insufficient, was not sufficient. And they told you that they educated you, but really, if you were really educated, you have an inspired mind to innovate and to create and to solve problems. If you can't do those, you were just taught how to get a certificate and to look for a job. You were not taught how to live life. How to live life. And that is what Africans need. Africans need the ability to rethink and to re-educate themselves and to re-equip themselves with the right things, that if they say that you've been educated, there are things that should prove that you've really been educated. And we have a lot of people who are saying that they've been educated, but nothing proves that they're educated. Your ability to think on your own and not be afraid to question shows that you've been educated. And have the humility of heart to change your position if somebody else is able to present another worldview which is stronger than yours. It means that you've been educated. You're not dogmatic. You're open to discussion when people face you with the facts. That is education. And you develop clarity and the ability to assess things properly. To assess things properly and have good judgment. And you are able to get things done. If you're really educated, you get things done. And you communicate clearly. You're able to bring the ideas that you have in you and present them to whoever is needed, whoever needs to hear what you have. If you've really been educated, they equipped you with the ability to communicate, to convince, to sell, to market, to negotiate. If you've really been educated, because the ideas are in your head, and unless you're able to present the ideas for another person to consider them, nobody will get on your side. And so the form of education that they gave you, it will prove, if you're really educated, it will prove in how you're able to submit your ideas to whoever needs to hear it. The presentation, the packaging, they prove that you've been educated. And your ability to really look at issues critically and analyze issues and separate those that you think are not true from those that you think are true. You go to a scene, they are beating somebody, they say that he is a thief. And you see that people carry stone and coming, they come, they just hit the man. And they were not there when the man was stealing. It's because the mind is not inspired, so they cannot think on their feet. The more you can think on your feet, the more it shows that you are educated. And so when there is confusion, there's a disagreement, let the thing will spark huge debate and fight, because the people have not been educated. They may have gone to school, but they can think critically. They can separate issues. They just come with emotions. They can't control their emotions. They can't control their feeling, their anger, their pain. If you're educated, you know how to solve things independently. The fact that somebody cheated you and his son is coming for an interview, if you're really educated, you separate the son from the father. Because you want to judge the son as an individual. It's education. It's education. If you're really educated, you see the value of working with people. You see the value of understanding what it takes to work together with people and get results. If you're educated, you see the value that money plays in this life. You don't trivialize it. You don't just assume, and you don't just convince yourself that it's not important. If they gave you education, they will equip you to say that your vision will be financed. So you must know what it takes to finance a vision if you're really educated. If they sent you to school, you'll be the ones debating on the radio station to say that it's not everything, it's not important. Groupthink, yeah, group thinking. So if you're really educated, you think separately. You can think on your feet. You don't care whoever disagrees with you. You can stand to say that what you're saying, yes, I accept what you're saying, but this is what I think. And you're not afraid. You meet the Chinese man who is working with a lot of our boys. They say one, and everybody sits down. Because the people have been given certificates, but they were not taught how to work with foreigners. And there is no education like that. So the confidence is low. But when the foreigner shows up, they call in because they were not equipped. Education is proper constructive training of a people to produce results. That's education in anything, whether it's in business, whether it's in politics, whether it's in academia, whether it's even in religious setting. If you really train them, some of the things that you will produce out of the education that you have given the people is that they develop independence in thinking. They are able to see themselves as full human beings with the ability to make their own choices. They don't just make a lot of decisions out of their emotions, they make decisions with data. Superstition goes down because they've been educated to separate the wrong from the right. They get to understand that in this life, if you want development, if you want progress, your ability to make the right decisions are so crucial to progress and development. If you want to build a business, if you really are educated, and they say that the reason your business is not doing well is because somebody somewhere has gone somewhere to do you something. If you're really educated, you don't give attention to that. Because you can support your argument with the fact that there are a lot of businesses around the world who have been built and built well without all these belief systems that they are trying to push on you. So somebody meets you on the street and say that I see something in your eye. God is, that those things that they're saying, they are not true. Because you can separate the wrong from the right if you're educated. And so the more the people are educated, the more they have respect for one another. the more they have value for human lives, the more they have appreciation for the time of others. They don't waste people's time, they don't waste resources. They appreciate people and they give people priority if they've been educated. And so you cannot build a civilization without educating the people. It's not just sending the people to school. No. It's educating them to think rightly and to live. Because when you send them to school, you just send them to school to give them some kind of training. When you're educating them with the end in mind. That this is where the country wants to be in the next 50 years. And these are the people that we need to be there. So let's say you are educating your workers. When you're educating them, you know that, okay, maybe you want to make 100,000 sales every day for the next 2 months. That's where we want to hit. So you sit down to design the training manual, a training program. You educate them with the end in mind, that this is where we want to go, and this is the kind of training, this kind of information that you need for us to get there. So the kind of training that they are giving us as Africans, individually or even as a group, they show that there is no end in mind. So they just say anything to us, they just give us any tool, they just train us anyhow. There is no end in mind. So what they are giving us is just school, write exam, pass, get A. Go and do science and math quiz. Hey, my school qualified. Those kind of things. But there is no clarity as to what we want out of this. The people must be trained. And the people must be educated. And if you see any people educated, you will see the results. And so if you're an African and you're not getting this kind of results, if you're not seeing this, it means that the responsibility is yours to go back to the drawing board, to go back and re-educate yourself. If you don't do that, it will affect the way you achieve anything with your life. Then you will not have value for ethics and integrity. You will not have value for honesty and credibility. You will not have value for human life. You will not appreciate critical thinking, being thoughtful, analyzing issues. You will just go with the superstition. You will practice something for years and there's no results, and you still believe that what you're doing is right, because you just left yourself with this kind of education that they gave you. The African, for them to become, or for us to become very productive, for us to become people who can get results and develop as a continent, we must re-educate. We must re-educate at the personal level, and we must re-educate as a people. Other than that, the hope and the prayer that we are doing, we will not get to the development that we want so quickly as we want. Because you must train the people to respect human lives. You must train the people to be honest. You must train the people to solve problems immediate to them. You go somewhere and you see a problem, you're not going to call the government to come and solve it. You solve it yourself. You're looking for a job, you can't find one, you create one yourself, because that is a problem that you're solving. If you're really educated, you solve problems. You innovate. You think on your feet. You know what you have and you know what other people have. You focus on the mission and you become that much strong. You are not afraid for disagreement from people because you have been equipped. You've been equipped rightly. And you continuously believe, if you're educated, the right kind of education, you would continuously believe that you have to constantly study and build yourself. So if these things were not part of your education, as an African, you have to re-educate yourself. And one of the things that you have to even re-educate yourself is in terms of African history, African identity, and African personality, with respect to your data that they gave you in terms of history, in terms of the kind of misunderstanding you have as an African. Because there are a lot of wrong data that Africans possess and control, and they are using those data, to for against them. So people make all kind of flimsy statements because they look like black people, but the training, they were not given proper one. So they were sent to just school. They've not been really educated as an African and what it takes to be one, and what it takes to fight and become successful as an African. A lot of people who look like us have no clue what it is. So you hear all the negativity and the hopelessness and the fear. So they only respond to people who they perceive as have money. They only respond to somebody they think has power somewhere. So if you look like you don't have money and you don't like power, to the untrained, uneducated African, you mean nothing. You just nothing. You are just like a goat or a chicken. But when they when they see you on TV or they see you somewhere, it's the president, then they bow because he's not been educated. He's not being educated. So somebody can tell him that your ancestors are demonic, and he believes it. And there are ancestral curses that we have to break from you, and he believes it because he's not educated. So for you to have a lot of these things to continue to fight and develop yourself and build the life that you want and live the life that you want, you may have to go and re-educate yourself. And some of the things that we said we may have to re-educate yourself in will be your ethics, your honesty, your problem solving sensitivity and scale. When there's a problem around, you don't just jump and move on. You solve it. They should get your attention if you've really been educated. If you've really been educated, there is a constant need and desire to constantly develop yourself, and you generate ideas, and you don't just generate ideas that are coming from somewhere, but you generate ideas that are linked to the society where you are, and that can bring solutions. You innovate if you've really been educated, and you're able to think on your feet and independently, and you're able to question a lot. You should have the mind to ask the guy who's teaching you something that why are you saying this and why are you not saying that. If you've really been educated, you are not afraid of any human being at all. You respect people, but if it has to be something that you have to say, you will say it anyway because you've been equipped. Because education, proper one, is equipment. And there is a constant desire to better yourself and get the skills that you need to create the future that you want. So your ability to think separately from the other people shows that you've really been educated, and your ability to be confident in yourself and not continue to blame yourself and think that other people are better, other people are wiser, and you don't have anything. No. And you also don't think that you are better or better than other people and some people are inferior to you. You don't believe in those things because you've really been educated. You've really been taught the value for human life, the value for time, the value for solutions. You've been taught how to create the life that you want. So if you've been educated, there's no way that you can say that you're unemployed. It never happens because you've been educated. You've been equipped. And what do you mean by being equipped? If you have a certificate, then you can be at home without a job because you just went to school to get a certificate. But if you've really been educated, you cannot say that you don't have a job. It's not possible. It's never possible. If you've really been educated, no, you're equipped. You look for solutions. You innovate on your feet. You think through. You're intellectually capable, morally sound. You are culturally stable. You are not the one who you go to your village and you want to talk and behave like you live in another country. No. You are able to move through the certain culture, the standard, the present culture that is there. You respect people, whether they are poor or they are rich. If you're really been educated, you give priority to people. You respect what people represent. You don't impose your ideas and your belief system on people if you've really been educated. If you have not been educated, you are the one going around creating fear because you are fearful. That's coming from school. When we're in school, some people say that Jesus is coming because they failed the exam. They didn't want the disgrace, and so they were preaching to us that Jesus was coming. You be educated, you don't hide your mistakes and your pain because you know that people have their issues. That is proper education. And so if you don't have these things, it means that you have to go and re-educate yourself as an African, or you will live a lie. You will live a facade. You will live a fake life. If you've really been educated, you have ethics. You cannot be educated and be corrupt. You can go to school and be corrupt, yes. But if you've been educated by the masters, you were educated on ethics and honesty. That's proper. That's the essence of education. You were taught how to value time, how to value resources, how not to abuse other people, how to be confident in your abilities, how to be separate and think on your feet. You know what money does and what money does not do. If you've been educated. So when they use the term education in terms of like Ministry of Education, those kind of things, it should really be Ministry of a School, not education. Because if the people have been educated, they will be confident to build their future, build their country, Wherever that you see people being educated, wherever they are, they create solutions from there. They don't create chaos. When you see chaos and all kind of things happening, it means that the people have not been educated. If they've been educated, there is solution. There's solution, there's progress, there is expansion. Anywhere that you see people who've been educated, because people can think and ask questions. And if you give them something that they do for a while, after a while they ask you questions. This one is not producing results. Why? But the other ones who have just gone to school, whether it's BE, or PhD, without education, because people can get certificate without education. And the proof of that is that they get the certificate, but nothing is being solved around where they live. They become president, they don't solve anything. They become minister, they don't solve anything. They don't. The problems of society don't get to them because they just went to school to get certificates. Those who have been educated, whenever they show up, anywhere, wherever they show up, you see solutions, you see progress, you see confidence in people, you see enlightenment on the face of people, you see people creating value and solutions because the people have been educated. So if you're an African and you don't see all these things, it means that there is the need that you have to re-educate yourself, or you just go for degrees that will only give you jobs, and it will be a job that you don't even like, but that's all that you did for yourself. You just got a certificate. But if you really re-educated yourself, there's no problem that you can overcome. There's no place that you cannot stand and talk. You will have value and appreciation for people. So if you look at your results and you're not happy as an African, it means that go and re-educate yourself. Don't believe so much in the school certificate that they gave you. No. Without self-education, self-development, the school certificate that they gave you will only give you salary, which will never be enough anyway. And so re-education, why you need it as an African, because degrees are for jobs and self-education is for life. The re-education that you are going to do yourself constantly, they are for life, and that is what separates you from your mates and from everybody else. Re-education. They build your confidence, they build your perspective, they build your judgment, they build your quality of your decisions. You have value for lives, you appreciate the time of people. There is a lot that you do rightly when you have re-educated yourself. And those kind of education that do not come from the classroom. To come from where you want to go. When you set an agenda for yourself, then you know that the things, the desire, the skills, the expertise, the connections that you need to get there. And that is the process that starts the re-education. The re-education. And so without it, a lot of people will just live very limited, very little life because they have no trust for people. They have no respect for people when they are not that much educated, and it is constructive training actually. They cannot think beyond their problems and they cannot create solutions. That's how it is. And there is no different perspective. They are not open to other thoughts at all because they just went to school to get certificate. So they are. And morally, physically, intellectually, you can see that they are not there yet. The ethics are weak because they are not there yet. And that is why you have to re-educate yourself as an African, so that you build this, because these are the essence of education. So if you say that you've been educated, because all that they have been telling us is that when you went to Bokwari school to get certificate and you went to Kwabena to get some certificate somewhere, it means that you've been educated. But the content was not education. The content was just for you to get a certificate. And that is why it's difficult for people without these kind of things that we are discussing to produce results. And then we blame them that they've been educated, they have gone to school, but they can't do anything. They can't do anything because when you say education, there are things that you should have put in. And you didn't put those things in. And you say that you have educated them. How is that possible? And so the Africans, that the guys, the British, what they left us, it was school, it's not education. And we have not even sat down to also put that thing in it ourselves. So we're still schooling the people. But we are not educating them to be proud of who they are. They respect everybody but their own people. Africans don't respect. They respect everybody. They'll be very calm. But when it comes to their own people, they stand up to challenge them. If you're really educated, you challenge everybody and you respect everybody. You value the ideas that they come, but you're not afraid to say that, no, this is not what I think. You're able to say what is on your mind. You're not a sycophant. You don't just put a face when everybody is there and behind you are talking badly about them. That is not education. You just went to school. If you're really educated, you know the damage of talking badly about people. So the ability to generate ideas, and you will never wait for help if you're really educated. You don't wait for somebody to come in to help you. You create your own force. You create your own, because you can think clearly and you can think on your feet, and you don't need another man to think for you. If you're really educated, and you know how to continuously improve your skill, yourself, continuously develop your mind, because that is the essence of education. So these things should be part of the training. Then you can say that is education. But if they didn't add these things, it's not education. You just had certificate. They just gave you certificates. So you can have certificate from Anglican Junior High. You can have certificate from another school. You can get certificate from engineering, PhD, and those are just certificates. They give you jobs, but they will not provide the life that you so want to live out of your heart, because that kind of life is lived out of education, and education is intentional. Education is constructive. You want to produce something out of these people to solve a problem. That is education. So what the other ones that they are doing, they are school. So, and what parents should be focusing on is educating their people, educating their children, not just the school. Because if it's education, you see this content in them. You see ethics, you see value for human life, you see problem solving, you see that the children will develop independence in thinking. They can question things. They are not afraid of another human being. They are not sycophants. They can tell you what they think, respectfully disagree with you, and they are not afraid of problems. They are thinking on their feet. That is education. That is education. And so if you didn't have those, then you have to go back and put them in yourself, or you will not get the results that you're looking for. And then you say that, oh, I went to school, I schooled, but I couldn't see what I did with my life. It's because you were given just information to go and write exam and pass so that they could give you certificate. And once they gave you certificate, you thought you were educated. No, sir. You were not educated. You were just giving some kind of information. If you're educated, there are things that they should have added to you. And when you have them, you see that you're educated. When you don't have them, you have to go and re-educate yourself. Or you will chase all these certificates and you will say that you have had education. But indeed, it's not education that you had. You just had a training that they gave you certificates. And so you cannot produce results. You cannot solve a lot of problems because you're not being educated. That's why there is a need for us as Africans to re-educate, to reassess the kind of education that they've been giving us, And once you have the tools to understand English, go and rediscover yourself. Go and retrain yourself. And if you're really being educated, I say that you will see that you have trust and you have respect for people. You treat people with that. There's dignity, and you allow people to make their own decisions and their choices, and be open to discuss and debate. The pride is down, humility is up, because you've been educated, because you know what it takes to get to the heart of people. That is education. The ability to think and solve problems is part of education. So if you look around and there are so many problems everywhere, and they say that they have produced a lot of educated people, that is not really education. That is people that they have sent to school to get certificates so that they can get a job. That is not education at all. So the ability to connect ideas and produce solutions, customize situations and solve problems, you will see that only among those who are educated. So if you say that you've been educated and you cannot do this, it means that go back and re-educate yourself. And you will not have problem with your emotional maturity, your sense of focus, your ethics and your values for that which has to be done and done rightly. So there are people who have all kind of trainings, but they've not been educated, because you know that everything else that you're building, the base of it is the ethics, is the integrity. If you're really educated, it's the base of it is the integrity, is the character. So you will not want to build anything without the base. If you're educated, you will see that. If they train you, if the masters train you, you will see that. If nobody train you, you come out with certificate and make a lot of noise and tell us that whatever you know is what we should. And you have the desire to constantly train and learn on your feet. That is proper education, proper education, proper education. And you have the sense of legacy. You want to leave this world having left a name, having solved something, having become part of the solution than just a problem. You know, and you're constantly thinking on your feet, and you can create solutions, and you never care disagreeing with people, but at the same time respecting people. You know, so thank you very much for watching. There is something they call education. If you're an African, the one that they gave you is likely that was not it. You have to re-educate yourself and work on it yourself, develop it yourself, because that's how you get results. And so when they see Africa and they say that there are so many problems everywhere, it's because very few of us have been educated. A lot of us were just sent to school. A lot of us were just sent to school because we have no sense of problem solving around the environment. We don't create any solution at all, you know. And I for one, that's why I do this, what I do, so that we can also share the things that we know and the things that we are learning, the inspirations that we are getting. And every now and then you meet somebody who says that, oh, I've been watching your videos and thank you for sharing those thoughts with me. You know, I've watched it on LinkedIn, or I've watched it on YouTube, or I watch it on Facebook. You know, I've watched them, and sometimes it's because people have not been exposed to other ways of looking at life, other ways of thinking. Because the environment that we've been born into, the only sources of information, they are coming from either the church, they're coming from the media, or they are coming from the school. And all of these are not meant to educate us. They are only meant to either entertain us, or give us some political information, or to give us a certificate. But the things that will challenge you to become better, to challenge your thoughts and to solve problems and to get solutions around you, those are the things that trigger education. It's not the what triggers education is not the one that make you laugh and smile and all those things that they do, the comedy and entertainment. No, that which makes you to become confident, hopeful again, bold again, feel like you're in charge, you're in top of the world, because you started to know that life is not that as tough as they told you, and that if you develop yourself and become better, there's a lot that you can do from where you are, and that you are not disadvantaged. That is education. And that's what I try to share. You know, rediscovering yourself, re-educating yourself, knowing that you have skill, abilities, and you're not a servant. You are not somebody who should live in fear constantly. No. You are educated to be bold and to live the vision, the heart, the passion, and to live this life having made contribution. That is education. All the other ones, they just gave us to get us certificate. So when they testing us and they mark us and they say that you have 20 out of 100, and they tell you that you're not intelligent, really that is just school training. That is not education. Okay, because the guy who you are calling not intelligent may be a musician, maybe a rapper, maybe a footballer, may even be a surgeon. You have no idea what that guy can become if he sits down to educate himself, trains himself, because education is that which brings the best out of you. And that's why nations who have developed educated their people. They didn't send them to school. They educated them, and it's a conscious training to get the people to have something so that they can produce something. That's a conscious training. The ones that they are sending us through, just for the certificate. And that's why nations who have developed, they train their people. Families who have developed and created prosperity, they train their people. Individuals who have become anything out of nothing, building up, It's because they educated themselves, because they had something in mind and they equipped themselves with it and they solved problems. That's why they became better. So education gets you. Degrees will get you a job, no problem. But even if you had that job, it's the education that you do to yourself, for yourself, that will get you to become the best at that job. So anything that is building your confidence and your perspective and your resource is for education. It's for education. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you. It's late.